It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. I'm Tyler. With me, as always, is my co-host Smitty. Go follow us on all of our social medias at Around the 412. While you're at it, go check us out over on YouTube. I was actually I'm going to specifically bring this up on this episode because I'm curious of the numbers. I want to know how many people were subscribed. Oh my goodness. There was 81.6% of non-subscribers watched our video last week with Josh Getzoff, the voice of the Pittsburgh Penguins. That is absolutely ridiculous. Go follow us on YouTube. It's free. It doesn't give you any time or waste any time for you, and it makes sure you never miss one of our videos. So hit subscribe, like the videos if you like what you're seeing. Leave a comment if you have a question for a future episode. Also, while you're at it, go check out the description of the show. We've got links to all of our great sponsors, but also we have year 7 of Rocking Around the 412 at the top of the description here on YouTube, over on the listening platforms. If you listen to the podcast audio as well, go check it out. We provide Christmas to local children in the 724-412 Pittsburgh areas with the help of all the views that donates. We also provide Christmas to children sponsored on the East Rochester Salvation Army's Angel Tree. So if you're interested in that, want to learn more about it, it is the top link. We've got the GoFundMe link there. It's going to be there from now until December. If you're interested in donating, you can do it right there. You can also send us money directly if you don't want to go through GoFundMe. We've done that in the past. Or if you know any families that you feel like you need to nominate, you can nominate families that we can provide Christmas for in the local Pittsburgh area. So I'll read all about that at the GoFundMe link. This is the Penguins Show. As I mentioned, last week, we had the voice of the Penguins, Josh Getzoff, on. Another great episode. Numbers-wise, did pretty well for one of our Penguin shows. We saw a late bump with Josh sharing the show, so appreciate all of you, even though none of you are subscribed, or at least 81.6% of you are subscribed. So go change that. But that was a fun episode. So if you haven't, go check that out. We'll actually link that in the description as well, just in case this is a Penguins episode, in case you haven't seen it yet. But we had a lot of good stuff that we talked about with Josh. You got a lot of his takes on this episode. I feel like we're going to talk about a little bit of our thoughts on what we discussed with Josh. Kind of just more so got his, and we didn't really get to like sit down and really mesh that out. So where do we want to start with some of the stuff that was discussed? We're still a few weeks away from the season, so not a ton of news going on besides training camp coming up.
Sure.
But outside of that, what are we going to start talking about? Roster formation?
Well, first off, I just love the fact that the first thing that we're going to do is yell at people for not being subscribed to us. So, yes, yell at the audience, the people that are here watching, because they need to be subscribed. 100% agree. So do that right now as we're talking. I'll be honest, the thing that we didn't really touch on, and it was for good reason, we didn't want to put Josh in a spot here, was the Sidney Crosby contract extension. Because each day that passes, obviously, we're one day closer to the season. And I don't know. Like, it just seems weird that it's not already done, right? Like, you would have just thought, like, this is easy business. He's going to lock in for $8.7 million per season, probably give him 3 or 4 years. Like, what are we doing? Like, I don't know where the contention possibly would be, whose side it would be on. I don't want to, like, speculate because that's not really my thing. I've seen people try to do that. I just think it's weird. Like, so I'm not going to say why I think it is. Don't know that I have an opinion. I haven't heard anything. It's just odd to me that we're sitting here on September 4th, 2024, recording this right now. That's not the time you guys are watching and listening to this, but this is when we're recording. And we still haven't seen a contract extension with Sidney Crosby done yet. And we're going to throw another name out there, but specifically Crosby, because that's the domino that we're all waiting on. I don't know, man. Like, has your mind shifted to the idea that maybe we do start the season without an extension in place for Sidney Crosby? How weird would that be?
That would be unfathomable in my mind. And reason being is because it's Sidney freaking Crosby. Like, what are we doing that he does not have his contract signed yet? What is Kyle doing? What is the holdup? I don't understand it at all, especially when you look at a guy like that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure he means a lot to this organization, but in my eyes, means less to the organization just from a not from a stat standpoint, but like Leon Draisaitl just got paid on Tuesday by the Edmonton Oilers. Big contract.
Boy, did he. Yeah.
I don't understand why you have something like that going on. And that just brings up the Sid contract even more. I saw people bringing up the Sid contract. Like, how is that contract being signed, but Sid is not done already? That contract is not going to be nearly as much money as Draisaitl's contract is going to be, whether it's total contract or AAV. No matter how much you slice it, it's not going to be. And let's face it, as good as Leon Draisaitl is, as talented as he is, he does not mean as much to the Edmonton Oilers as Sidney Crosby does to the Pittsburgh Penguins in this city, just Pittsburgh in general. I don't know what the holdup is. It makes me wonder how much, what percentage of the holdup is on Sid versus is on Dubas and the Penguins. Because you would think if from both sides, it just seems so logical to say, well, I'm Sid. Say I'm Sid. I have played my whole career with the Penguins. I don't really want to play anywhere else. I want to retire with the Penguins. I would take on a new contract. Easy from his point of view. And if you're Kyle Dubas, it's like, well, this is Sidney Crosby. He's played his entire year here, or his career here. Not only is he the best player, one of the best players in franchise history, league history, he's also currently still my best player on the team at 37 years old. I feel like I should give him this guy a contract. Where's the disconnect? Why is it not happened yet? Is it just the fact that they haven't been in a room together? Is that the holdup? Like, they can't do this over the phone and they just haven't been in person together and they just want to make sure that it's in person where this gets done? They're going to be in person soon if they haven't already, because training camp is coming up. I just think the holdup makes me anxious for no reason, because in my mind, there's no way Sidney Crosby plays anywhere else. There's no way. I can't even begin to comprehend that idea. But at the same time, something that Josh brought up last week, you start the season with Sid without a contract. He gets on that Canada road trip. He might
all
start
the questions
to get the feels of like, what would it be like if I did go play with the Montreal Canadiens? Like,
and all the questions are going to be directed about that with him on an expiring deal. Yeah,
100%. And I just don't want that to even be in the realm of possibility. I don't want that to be looming over him. I don't want that to be looming over the team, because let's face it, no matter what the team is doing on the ice, if that contract is not signed, every single game, there's going to be questions about it. Of course, there's going to be questions about what they're doing on the ice, but that's going to be looming over not just Sid's head, not just Dubas' head, but the entire franchise, the entire team, the entire fan base, everything about the Penguins until that contract is done. If I'm the Penguins, and I mean, it's really easy to say this because I'm not the Penguins, but like, why not give him a 3-year deal that lines him up with the expiration of Letang's contract in another 3 years, in addition to this season? And if he wants it at 8.7 per for the superstition, fine. If he wants to raise it to 10 million, he's Sidney Crosby, still the best player in the team, fine. That's still a discount in my opinion. I do not care at that point, but I think that a contract has to be done sooner than later, because I feel like the closer you get to the season and it's not done, that's where it becomes more alarming. It's been questionable at this point, up to this point, but if you're getting up until that first puck drop in the first game of the season and there's a contract not still signed, that's where it switches from questionable to alarming in my mind.
That's fair. Yeah. And we all know what Crosby is, even at this age, what he can do on the ice, what he brings off the ice, what he means to this team, as you're saying. I'm not trying to make it 1-to-1. I think he's still, like, he's playing at a higher level than Cam Hayward was, who was just given a contract by the Steelers to finish out his career in Pittsburgh. I think Crosby absolutely deserves to be afforded that same opportunity. The guy's a game changer. What's going on, everybody? Smitty from Around the 412, and I just want to take a quick second to give a shout out to our folks at Game Changers. Their logo on the screen right now, right above my microphone. Over 2,000 different designs in their catalog. Luxury heavyweight material. I'm wearing one of their shirts right now. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Head over to gamechanger.la or pick6.la to pick up some shirts. And guess what? Use code AT412. Save yourself $10 on your order every single time. Again, gamechanger.la or pick6.la. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Check them out. Tyler, I didn't mention talking about this, and there's a reason. I'm probably going to get emotional talking about it. I feel like we would not be doing the situation justice if we didn't talk about the Johnny Gaudreau situation. To be honest, when you mentioned Leon Draisaitl, it was put out there that it was done before. but they didn't put out the contract due to the respect of the Johnny Gaudreau situation and his brother Matthew. Don't want to just, sorry, I didn't want to leave out Matthew in that situation, obviously, as well. But that kind of put it on my mind. And then I played that Game Changers thing, and I just ordered a Johnny Gaudreau Game Changers shirt the other day. They had one for the Columbus Blue Jackets. But I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the situation to some degree. As hockey fans, we've obviously seen Johnny Gaudreau do amazing things on the ice, all the stories that people talk about and have talked about over the last few days off of the ice. But obviously, first and foremost, what he was for his family, as a husband, father, brother, son. And that's where my mind goes before hockey, is thinking about those people. And I didn't want to believe it that night when, rumors were spreading before it was finally confirmed in the morning that it was Johnny and his brother Matthew whose lives were taken in that terrible situation. And I have thoughts about that as well that I'll get into in a second. But my mind immediately goes to those people closely impacted by the tragedy, not necessarily thinking about the hockey world, but being that this is a hockey podcast, we've watched Johnny Gaudreau do amazing things on the ice over the last few seasons. And I think as like a smaller player, me specifically, always, kind of gravitated more towards that type of player, being more impressed by him being able to do the things that he was at his size. So from that perspective, obviously amazing to see. And I said I had other thoughts on it. I for people that have been longtime watchers or listeners of the show, know that in 2018, my cousin's life was taken by somebody driving under the influence. So like this just really hit home to me more than I feel like most athlete deaths because of how it happened. And I just feel like I'd be, remiss if we didn't at least touch on the situation. I thought Pat Damp and Hunter Hodes of Locked On Penguins did a phenomenal job of navigating the situation. And I feel like it's also relevant to bring up on a Penguin show because Kevin Hayes, who, was best friends with the Gaudreaus, Johnny specifically, who had also lost his brother over the last few seasons. So I can't think about, I can't imagine what that guy's been through over the last few years. And they mentioned something on their show that I will echo here. Opening night, PPG Arena, treat Kevin Hayes like he's Sidney Crosby when you're giving him an ovation. And I just want to echo that.
I agree with that 100%. I really loved whenever those guys put that out there. I mean, when stuff like this happens, it just really goes to show how fragile life is. You think of these guys, and even as adults, even though as you get older, you start to realize that especially after in the situation we have, where we've talked to a lot of them, that athletes are people too. But it's not until something like this happens where for a lot of people where it really hits home that like athletes are genuinely people, their sons, their fathers, their spouses. And that's something, especially because of this situation in itself, being in town for their sister's wedding and Matthew being an expecting father in December, Johnny leaving behind his wife and 2 kids already. I can't imagine being an expecting father myself, and a husband, what that family is going through right now. I can't even begin to imagine the feelings that they had. And my heart breaks for them. My thoughts were with them, are still with them. And you remember the hockey player, but I remember the people as well. And that how these lives are fragile and how they are something that's important outside of the realm of hockey. They were important to their family. They're important to their friends. And that's something that is really hitting home for me now that I'm like in situations where like, it's like, I'm going to be a dad. And I just can't imagine being in that. So it was tragic news. Also, you touched on it. I'm going to touch on it as well. I was pissed off when I found out it was a drunk driver. If you were drinking and you decide to drive, you are a moron. There's no place where that is ever okay, especially at this point with how much knowledge there is about drinking and what's been out there about drinking and driving. There's no point where it is ever okay. And it just makes me so mad that we are still at this point where some people still need that lesson. And it takes 2 lives for some people to realize that. It shouldn't take any. It should never be a decision anybody has to make. Never pick up your keys if you're drinking. I'm not. This is turning into anger, but it just made me so mad when I saw that is the outcome of it.
Yeah, I mean, we recorded a podcast, I think 2 or 3 days after my cousin passed away. And I don't know that I really shed that much light on the situation in terms of how it happened. So if I didn't, I mean, I know I tweeted about it, and I've been very vocal about how I feel about drunk driving or driving under the influence of anything, really. But that's what it was. So like, that's obviously hits closer to home because of that. And like I said, if you're an OG watcher, listener of the show, you know how hard obviously that impacted me, and that kind of just comes to the forefront again. That's who I think about when something like this happens. So it's a shame that family's now dealing with a tragedy that hits so close to home for me. I didn't even touch on the fact it was their sister's wedding, that Matty wasn't expecting father. So yeah, there's just a lot of terrible things about that situation. And then for the driver to be doing, you know, his Zoom court or whatever that was, and he seemed like he was put off by the fact that he had to stay in holding longer because it was a holiday weekend. I mean, buddy, it's going to be a lot longer than that 72 hours that you're staying in holding. So, yeah, I don't even know what else to add to that.
I don't either. And there's no easy transition from a conversation like that. So let's just get back to talk about the Penguins. Yeah, we wanted to bring up Pettersson, or Marcus Pettersson, excuse me. Marcus Pettersson with the Penguins defense. We mentioned last week with Josh Getzoff, like the potential of the Penguins even moving Marcus Pettersson. If they got to that point, an extension should be coming if they were not going to move him, because Marcus Pettersson going into this season is in the last year of his deal, currently at $4.025 million on a cap hit. You would expect he'd probably get a raise, especially we think he deserves a raise as one of the best and definitely the best defensive defenseman on the team right now. Where do we sit with this? Like, I think a lot of it is going to depend on how the Penguins are performing, because
that's fair. Yeah.
I don't think that this is like a Sid scenario where they need to get an extension done before the season. I think that you can go into the season without an extension being done, but feel out how the season is going. If you really don't think that you're going to be a contender, if you're getting towards the trade deadline and you're not going to be a contender, obviously it would hurt, because that means that, like, I think that if you sell Marcus Pettersson, then that is you fully hitting the reset button. That is you saying we're not trying anymore. We're really buying into rebuilding, retooling, however you want to structure it, because that is not only one of your best players on the team, but he is the person that's going to bring you in the most assets. When you're trading players like that, I feel like that is a signal sign for a franchise that is in a rebuild mode. So if they get to that point, I think that would be the case. And I think it's smart for the Penguins to kind of just feel that out, because as much as I like Marcus Pettersson, as much as I want him to be in Pittsburgh and be on this defensive core because of how good he is, how much value we think he has, at the same time, if it is going to be a situation where for the future it's better off for the Penguins to recoup those assets, then I think that is something that the Penguins should consider. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I mean, the reason that I brought it up last week with Josh was because David Pagnotta, the fourth period handle on Twitter, brought up like start of free agency. He was like, I can't remember exactly what the tweet was, but it was basically like, hey, you know, the Pens might not be spending a lot on free agency, but they're close to extensions with Marcus Pettersson and Sidney Crosby. Just like drop that bomb in the middle of the first day of free agency. And so I was like, okay, well, you know, this is going to happen. Get these two guys taken care of. It makes sense. But the fact that it hasn't happened, I think that one's much less likely than Sid. Like, I could see that. I don't know that I'm fully in the same boat as like Jake Gensel. I don't know where you're at with that situation. Like, you viewing it similarly to that. because I think there's a world where they would extend him, but like you, I do think like it makes sense to kind of play it out. The interesting thing to me would be the return. Like we talked with Josh about this, and he said that he thinks they did a haul. I obviously think he's a great player. You think he's a great player, but does the league view? I'm curious how the league views him as opposed to just Penguin fans, because I almost view him similarly to like the best version of Brian Dumoulin, like clear number one left-hand defenseman, top two guy, plays with a top offensive defenseman on a team. But what does that net you in return? Like, what would Brian Dumoulin have gotten for the Penguins back if they would have traded him in like 2016, 2017, 2018, somewhere in those peak years of Brian Dumoulin? I don't know the answer to that, obviously, and I just question whether maybe we hold him too high of value compared to how the league would.
Yeah, and I think that's always been an interesting question. That's something that we've talked about a little bit on the show before, like how much value does not Brian Dumoulin, excuse me, Marcus Pettersson
None
have?
Now.
Yeah, none now. How much value does he have around the league? I think that it is valuable to a team to have a defensive defenseman like that, just because while he's not the flashiest player, he is your responsible role player. He is the player you put out there with that offensive flashy forward style defenseman to play backup essentially to their mistakes. I think that that's going to get more value to a team than I think a lot of people would give credit for. I think that when you look at winning in the postseason, Marcus Pettersson would be very valuable to a team because of how responsible he is defensively. So maybe to a contender, if the Penguins were in a spot where they are selling, that could be a case where, like, do you get maybe this is too high. Like I defenseman trades are also, I don't know how to gauge them as much as like a forward, but compare him to Jake. If we're comparing him to Jake, do you think the trade would be more or less than what you would get for Jake Gensel?
Less. I think less. Now the question is, because I think it was clear in that trade they went quantity over quality.
Yeah.
So is that what Dubas is going to do in these types of trades? Is that what he's hunting? Is the abundance? Because we know that the cupboard's pretty bare. So would he be cooler taking, a bunch of guys that the ceiling might not be as high, but they're probably NHL players, or do we shoot for the stars on one guy in return? I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is.
Or do you what was the full Jake trade? I know they got the 3 prospects. I know they got Bunting. And then did they get a pick in return? Is it a second round pick? Mm-hmm. If you sacrifice those 3 prospects and you just go player and pick, do you think they could get a first for a pick for a player like Marcus Pettersson? Like, does he give that type of value to a team?
I really don't see, I love Marcus Pettersson. This isn't what I would give up for him. I think that, the other part of it is he doesn't even have, like you're talking about, half a year of control. So that's the other part. I know that was that way with Jake too. I'm just saying, throw that into the equation. No, I think it'd be a second in a player or a second a prospect.
At the same time, like Josh, to his credit, obviously, I feel like he knows the league better than we do. If he's saying that you could get a haul for him, what is a haul to Josh Getzoff? We should have asked him that. Dang it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, a week too late on that question. But what is a haul if that's what you're saying you can get? Like if it's similar to what you could get for Jake Gensel, I would take it. Obviously, depending on prospects and all that type of stuff. Like if you're getting the quantity over quality in that sense, and I still think that the Penguins got some quality in that trade as well to go along with the quantity.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I think that it would be smart for the Penguins. Now, if they sign him tomorrow, I'm not going to be crying. Like I'm going to be happy because I think Marcus Pettersson deserves that type of contract. I'd love to see him here while the Penguins are still trying to win. But if later this year you get to a point where that's just not the case, if the Penguins are playing poorly and that's not going to happen, moving him could be the best option, because looking at the lineup, he is going to be the player that garners the most in a trade. Like who else would be close to him in terms of a return that the Penguins currently have? I don't think that you're going to get that type of return from like Brian Rust. I don't think you're going to get a return like that from Rickard Rakell. And then other guys aren't even worth it. Like you're not trading Malkin, you're not trading Sid, you're not trading Letang or Carlson. Nobody else is going to give that.
Rust is the one I was thinking about.
Yeah. Do you think people value him? Like, if we're questioning how people value Marcus Pettersson, do we value Marcus Pettersson above or below Brian Rust? I would say for what they bring to the team, we probably value Marcus Pettersson higher. But at the same time, how would the league view Brian Rust versus Marcus Pettersson?
It's pretty close, but you know what how the league would view it? 2 cups, brother.
That's true. I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
I sometimes forget that Marcus Pettersson wasn't here for either of the cups.
Mm-mm.
That's a weird thought to me, that it's been that long where I don't even remember that he wasn't on a cup team.
Yeah. What, he came in 19, I think, in that trade?
The 18-19 season, I think.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know. I think that plays into it. Like, this is definitely a thought, not of my own, but trying to think of how the NHL thinks. I think the fact that Brian Rust has won 2 Stanley Cups, Mr. Game 7, I think that he would fetch more in a trade.
That contract, though.
Yeah.
3 more years at $5.125 million.
Mm-hmm. To be honest, I don't like last year, a bit unlucky for him. I don't think that I think the years more than anything else, I think the cap hit is fine. We'll see how the last few years go, but I wouldn't consider like last year necessarily a bad year for Brian Rust.
No, I wouldn't at all. Like, what did he have last year? Let's see. Brian Rust in 2023-24, he had 62 games played, 56 points. I mean, 6 points shy of a point per game player, 28 goals. Mm-hmm. I don't think he had a bad season at all. Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure his expected goals was well over 30. So
yeah, I mean, he had a better season than the year prior, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. We'll see how that contract ages. But again, just trying to get behind the hockey world's mind, I think that Brian Rust would be valued higher than Marcus Pettersson. The other thing that we didn't talk about a lot last week, because we kind of just were getting Josh's thoughts on it, was the whole Rutger McGroarty thing. Like, how do you feel about this? One, this is kind of a joke question. Sticking with the number 2, what are your thoughts on that? Him wearing number 2 as a forward. And also just the move itself. I mean, I don't know that I was super excited when I saw the name coming back. And then you see that Yager's part of the deal, which kind of threw me off. 1-for-1, I still make that trade, but I was surprised they had to part with him. They get it done. But, what's your thought on the deal, jokingly the number, and then where you think he'll slot in the lineup?
So the deal itself, I like. I think if you look at it from the goal of what the Penguins have, and we discussed it with Josh, we've discussed it ourselves. Kyle Dubas has the responsibility of not only making your team better in the now, but also better in the future. And that's a tricky thing as a GM. And that's a tricky thing to do with players as well, because a lot of them, like our older guys, they are definitely win now. They're not for the future. But then some of the guys we have for the future aren't really good enough. I think that this trade accomplishes both of those things, because this is a guy that's going to be playing NHL games for you right now and going to be on your roster while also being a piece of your future. I think it accomplished both. I think right now, Rutger McGroarty is better suited for the Penguins than Braden Yager. And, of course, in a one-on-one trade, those guys for the rest of their careers are going to be compared to each other. But Braden Yager might end up being the long-term better player than Rutger McGroarty. But if your goal for Kyle Dubas is to improve the team to win right now and get better for the future, I think he did that. Having to give up Braden Yager, obviously not ideal to give up your first-round pick from a year ago. But I think that if you are the Penguins, this is the player that better suits you right now. In the terms of like how they are kind of balancing that teeter act of winning now plus rebuilding and cooping the future. So the trade I was fine with, just a 1-for-1 trade, swapping 14th overall picks. That's probably a very rare trade to just see that in back-to-back years. And don't be wrong, Braden Yager is going to be a good player, but he does not help the Penguins right now. He helps the Penguins in a couple years, but not right now. So that's why I like it from that standpoint. I think that the number himself, wearing number 2, that feels like a defenseman's number, but
Will Smith of the Sharks
what
also wears 2 as a forward.
What I will say is if you're wearing number 2 as a forward, you better be wearing some white gloves and you better be nasty with your stick handling, because that's like something that you'd see on like EASHL online stuff. But if you're wearing number 2, you better be good. That's what I'll say. If you're wearing that number as a forward, you better be good.
Okay.
And maybe that doesn't matter from player perspective. Nobody on the ice is actually going to care that he's number 2. But in my mind, like if I see a forward wearing like a single digit number like that, he better be freaking good. And so that's my thoughts on the number. And where I think he's going to slot in the lineup, I think that he will get a shot to play with Sid, like Josh mentioned last week. If you listen to this episode, I think that second spot with Sid, like obviously Russ is going to be on his right wing. The left wing is more up for grabs, whether that could be someone like Rucker McGroarty or if it's going to be Drew O'Connor. I know he mentioned Ovil. Why can't I think of his name? Ovillier.
Anthony Beauvillier.
Beauvillier. I was putting the B in the wrong spot. Jeez.
Come on, you predicted him. You predicted.
I know. Beauvillier. Yeah. I was trying to put it in the middle of the name. He predicted that. That would be a shock for me. I don't think that has a shot. If anything, I would probably predict Drew O'Connor to win that top spot.
That's my
the second line is more interesting to me. If you're going to put Rucker McGroarty on the second line, that would mean that Rickard Rakell, in my mind, would drop down to the third line, because I would assume Michael Bunting and Evgeny Malkin are going to stay together. I don't know how you split that pair up. So realistically, where I would slot him if he's playing night 1, I'd probably put him on the third line. I'd put him on the third line with Kevin Hayes and Cody Glass, probably.
Okay. That's possible. I don't even know if he's going to make the team because of all the bottom 6 things, but I was thinking Puustinen. Just from like
maybe Puustinen. I don't know. The bottom 6 is interesting. There's a lot of guys that are going to fill a couple spots.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about Glass though, because you got to figure if what I said is true, you got to fit Glass and Eller for sure into the fourth line. And then you only got one spot open still, and we haven't
between Achari, Lizotte, Beauvillier. There's a ton of guys.
They're gonna make another. They're gonna make a trade. They have to make a trade with somebody.
Well, okay, let's just make a line real quick. Sid, Drew O'Connor, Rust. Easy. Bunting, Malkin, assume Rakell. That's probably going to be it. Yeah. If we put Rucker McGroarty, does he play left wing if he's not a center?
Yeah.
Okay. Rucker McGroarty, we'll say he's left wing. I'm assuming Kevin Hayes is your center. And then let's go with what you said, Puustinen. I'm
actually leaning Glass after you said that, but
okay. Then let's put Glass there. Cody Glass on that third line. Eller for sure, probably unless they trade Eller, he's going to be that fourth line center. Who's his wing?
I think Lizotte
is a lock. Lizotte is a lock on that left side. So on that right side, you'd have to decide between Achari, Beauvillier, Puustinen. Who else?
Nieto coming back.
I was saying I figured there was one that was missing. Nieto is coming back. Like you've got several guys that are NHL caliber players.
Any of the guys, like there's a couple guys that came in that Carolina trade we just mentioned. That are
Ville Koivunen, Ponomarev. There's several guys that could be playing at the NHL level. And I mean, maybe there is a trade. Like, do they move on from Lars Eller so they can fit a couple more of these guys? I
wish it was Achari, but I mean, you're probably.
I have always been in the camp that even though Eller probably makes the most sense to move on from a age standpoint and salary cap standpoint, I thought that he played well enough where he deserves to be back this upcoming season. Like especially as a 4C as opposed to a 3C, I don't mind him on the season on the team at all.
Yeah, there's even more guys than I thought. Emil Benstrom, Sam Poulin, Jesse Puljujarvi. Like there's so many options.
Sam Poulin. That is a Tyler Glass now of the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah. Well, maybe let's see him somewhere else and see how that works out. Maybe this time he'll actually make the cut. Smitty from around the 412 here, and while I may not have much hair, the hair that I do have will not be cut by anybody besides Keek at Keek's Barbershop. My friend Christian Circle, been with us since day one. Keek's Barbershop, located 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Download the app, The Cut, book an appointment with Christian today, or you can do walk-in with Tony or Ashley. But again, Teeks Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Go check them out. Old school vibe in there. Absolutely love it. Cannot recommend them enough. Wouldn't go anywhere else. Maybe I'll see you there. I doubt it, though. Are you completely, like, has the ship sailed, do you think, Sam Poulin?
At this point, what is he?
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think well, how many games did he play last year? Like, he was up here for more than a cup of coffee, I felt like. I think that he got several games under his belt. Where is he at? Sam Poulin. Why can't I find you on this list? Samuel Poulin. Last year, he played in, well, maybe I was wrong. 3 games. He was up here for a cup of coffee. I don't know.
Yeah, he only has 6 total.
If they want to keep him around, like, at this point, it's boom or bust for him. He needs to make the NHL roster out of camp.
He's 23 now.
Yeah, I think it's boom or bust. This is year 5, or actually year 6 in the organization. I'm trying to think. He was drafted in 2019. I know that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a long time ago. For an NHL player, that's a long time.
It turns 24 in February.
At this point, he needs to be on the NHL roster, or he's
I don't
just going
see
to be. I don't see it either. Like, he's one where maybe if you move on from Eller, you start him at the 4th line center and see how it goes. But at the same time, I don't see the progression from him that you would have liked to have seen for a 1st-round pick.
As crazy as this sounds, I don't think that he's amongst their best options. Like, if you had a 5th line, I'm not sure if he's on it.
No, I mean, especially when you look at, fill in the line. So we talked about the 4th line. Lizotte, Eller, let's just put Achari there.
Yeah.
A 5th line. You got Beauvillier. You got Puustinen. You got Nieto. That's probably your line right there. A 6th line. Is he better than...
No, actually, yeah, either the 5th or 6th line, I'm throwing in those Hurricanes prospects.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Is he better than Vasily Ponomarev? Is he better than Ville Koivunen? You got Jesse Puljujarvi. I don't see it. I just don't see it. Emil Benstrom, we forgot about him too.
Yeah, I mentioned him right before I played that little promo, but I don't know that he's. I don't know if he's part of the mix, but either way, the point is, I don't know. I think the ship sailed, to be honest. I'll be surprised if he carves out an NHL role for himself at this point.
Might as well just go to Europe. Go to the KHL. Do something where you're actually going to play, or maybe get traded.
The one 1st-round pick that Jim Rutherford decides to hold on to.
Yeah, seriously. Him and Nathan Legare, the 3rd-round pick from that year. I don't even know where he went, but they didn't pan out.
Nope.
A lot of high hopes for those guys.
Really excited about Legare because of his shot. Didn't translate into anything. I think he's like if Cole Caulfield went wrong.
Yeah. Except Cole Caulfield can skate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like if because of the size, like a guy that at that small of a size that can shoot the puck, but nothing else translated. So, anything else you want to talk about on this episode?
Nothing in particular. I'm very curious to see how the bottom 6 shakes out now that we're talking about it. We can spend more time on that as training camp unfolds, but seeing
there's gonna be battles there.
Seeing the battles that's going to be happening is going to be interesting. Seeing what a Sid contract is going to be like. Let's predict what a contract is going to be. You think he sticks with 8.7, or do you think he changes that number?
I don't know, because if you, depending on what you want to buy into, like the number I've seen thrown around is 10, and
that's what I've seen too.
It's hard for me to imagine him coming off that 8.7, but maybe for his last contract. So I'll say 330. Keep it easy.
With the endorsement deals that dude has, what's he care about 1.3 million a year?
Selfish.
Absolutely. No, I agree with. I think he will move off of the 8.7. I think that 330 sounds good. I think that 3-year deal sounds good because it lines you up with a Tang. You guys want to go out together, you can. And if he continues, like, what what are the Penguins going to do if Sid continues through this contract to play at the level he is? Like, because like I mentioned to Josh at the end of last week's episode, Crosby is what is holding up this team from really just selling in on everything. Crosby is the only curse. He is the reason they can't fully rebuild.
What a prick.
Absolutely selfish that he won't be bad.
Let us know.
Think of the program.
Let us know if you're watching, listen to this, what you guys think about Crosby's situation. Do we get a contract extension done before the season? Are they going to play it out? Is the possibility there that he wears a different sweater in 2025? I don't even want to think about it, but I just put it out there. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell if you are here on YouTube, of course. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there. Check out the links in the description. Everything Custom Designs, our friend Haley Wagner's small business. Let me tell you about them. Need a custom t-shirt, hoodie, tumbler? Stop what you're doing. Don't go anywhere else. Check out the link in the description. Everything Custom Designs, our friend Haley Wagner's small business. She can do all that for you. She even does around the 412 merch, t-shirts, hoodies, long sleeve tees, bunch of different stuff. I even got a tumbler from her as well. So go check out the link in the description. Goes directly to her Facebook page. All of her stuff can be found there. Again, Everything Custom Designs. Haley Wagner, she does great work. Can't recommend her enough. Go check it out. That, as well as Year 7, Rocked Around the 412. Every single penny donated goes directly to impacting families in the 724 and 412 area codes, providing Christmas for children that otherwise would not have that type of Christmas, supporting local families, as well as partnering up with the East Rochester Salvation Army to adopt kids off their angel tree that they do every single Christmas. Been a blast. Want to continue doing it. We need your guys' support in that mission. Then, of course, Game Changers. Go to gamechanger.la or pick6.la. Shop there, pick out some shirts, and that's for a promo code. Put in AT412. You'll save $10 when you do that. Bunch of new designs just dropped. NFL season is here. 50 new designs, new NFL pack. More on the way as well. So,
or whenever Sidney Crosby signs his contract, they do have a Sidney Crosby design as well. So use code AT412. Yeah. Get $10 off your Sidney Crosby shirt.
Sid, Yager, Lemieux. I think those are the only 3 Penguin ones they have right now.
Yeah.
But they got a Discord channel, and you can just drop requests in there, and people do all the time. They just recently created a hockey channel. So I don't know. I don't know if there's somebody on the Penguins that I'm thinking about right now. Like, this person has to have one.
Sam
Maybe Rucker. Maybe Rucker will get one if he starts lighting it up. But either way, appreciate you guys watching or listening to this. Follow us everywhere as well at Around the 412. Until then, for Tyler, for Smitty, this has been the Around the 412 Penguin Show. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.